Hey everyone, it's me, Krylios, Team Racing Productions MC and producer. And today I have joining me Innanoshe. Innanoshe is here with us today, and I'm so happy to have him with us. Welcome to our Team Racing YouTube Live, Innanoshe. How are you?
I am fantastic, and thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Let me begin a little bit with your background. Share a little bit about yourself, and what you've done a little bit.
That's something that I find, always difficult to do. But let's. I am a Nigerian trained lawyer. I am a writer
Mhm.
and editor, and some consider me an activist. But I think that I just like I am. I think that I'm quite opinionated, and that may be considered as such.
I see, I see. That's a good answer. That's a good answer. Now, as a lawyer in Nigeria, how was that for you? What were the type of, cases and things that, really called to you that you did? What was your work there, as a barrister?
So I didn't practice while in Nigeria. I was
Okay.
called to the Nigerian, or as Americans like to say, admitted to the
Ah,
Nigerian bar um, in November of 2017, and I left Nigeria in 2018. However, as part of my thesis, I did a research on human rights and the anti-gay laws of Nigeria. So it sort of explored the harmful human rights impacts of Nigeria's Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, which
yes.
is something that predicated my work as um, the founder of Innanoshe magazine, which happened to be Nigeria's first LGBTQ publication.
And let's talk about that. Let's talk about that as well. A little bit. Tell me about coming up with this conception, because first of all, it's super brave to even do that. And I'm from a country myself that's homophobic, originally Jamaica. And I'm thinking like, would I want to start a magazine? Now that I do this though, and I'm like just openly gay and like everything, like me now would, but I don't even know if when I lived there, if I would have had the courage to do so. Tell me what that was like for you, emotionally, mentally thinking about doing this and then moving forward with doing something so groundbreaking.
Well, at the time that I began thinking about starting the magazine, I didn't intend to do something that is now being considered brave, as you have pointed. I did not, in fact, think that it was courageous of me doing so, because you have to understand that back in Nigeria, I did, to some degree, have a level. I was a little. I was a bit insulated from the um, harshest aspects of homophobia.
Mm-hmm.
I was largely around people that were um, understanding, and more, you know, um, tolerating some
Okay. Mm-hmm.
fact. And that I like to to ascribe to the level of access and things that I enjoyed, which of course is a great privilege as an LGBT.
Definitely.
Uh,
Definitely.
but I did go to a public university in Nigeria, and I was outed by someone that I considered to be my closest friend. We had a misunderstanding that dragged too long, or too far, really. And in retaliation, she outed me to literally everyone. And overnight, I became this social pariah. And
I know it. I know it.
I was thrust into like the full consciousness of everyone on campus, and that's about
Mm-hmm.
1,000 students. And suddenly I would be walking by and people would be like, oh yeah, that's him. And, people would just,
There's a Batman in Nigeria.
you
They
know,
do.
they called me names and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that impacted me on a very, very personal level.
Of course, yeah.
It shattered my confidence. I had this sense of paranoia everywhere. I just thought I was in, a state of danger and whatnot. And I really was, because homophobia can quickly, turn violent in Nigeria.
Yes.
Snap of a finger. So understandably so, I was afraid for myself. But that happened in my third year, and then in my fifth year, I wrote the thesis. And that was despite faculty pushback and whatnot. So moving on to actually getting to the point where I felt the need to launch a publication. I remember going around, asking friends, what do you think about this and whatnot? And many people were afraid for me.
I'm sure.
But I thought, well, I was in law school at the time. I had in a way, fully studied and researched the anti-gay laws, because that was what I wrote my research paper on. And so I knew the boundaries of that, how far to go and how not, so that helped me for a very long time. And yet, here we are.
Here we are. And I connect with this a lot, coming from somewhere like that, living in DC now as well. And there is something to be said about, LGBTQ immigration from, places like these, and, having to basically establish a new home somewhere else, to be able to live a freer life, in a certain sense. Tell me about that journey for you, and coming here, and tell me what led to making that decision. I'm sure it probably has something to do with the fact that you founded, the first LGBTQ publication in West Africa. So tell me about that journey.
So, I did suffer a homophobic attack that, I think it was the last, how did he say that? The last strike.
The last straw, the straw that brought the camel's back.
Straw.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
And once that happened, there is this absolute certainty of belonging that you may have, coming from being Jamaican, right? Or an American, that you belong here. It's 100%. It's unshakable. It's that feeling that you feel like this is home. I am safe first here. I would thrive best here, and so on. And that feeling that I had always had was, for the first time, shattered by that. It was finally, shattered by that one event, which, forced me to leave. And I arrived here in the summer of 2018. I have since then, gone through the usual rite of passage for refugees in America. The struggles that sort of defines your first year here, sociocultural or financial and otherwise.
And was this, coming in 2018, was this your first time to the United States?
It wasn't.
Oh, okay. All right, so now you're here, and there's still a lot of things going on back in Nigeria. There's, when it comes, there's political turmoil, there is social unrest right now, and right now there's a breaking point, especially when it comes to the End SARS movement. Let's talk a little bit about that, and give me your perspective.
So I wrote an opinion piece for the Washington Post sometime in October about the SARS movement. And, SARS is a terrorizing unit of the Nigerian police. It was established in the 80s, I believe, to curb armed robbery, theft, and so on. But the irony is that the members of that unit have themselves become the armed robbers. They harass, abuse, and steal and loot and anything you can think of that you would not expect from a law enforcement agency, and they are plain clothed. So that means that at random they will pop up at anywhere, and it's like, yes, we are SARS. And with the way that the near absence of rule of law in Nigeria means that a policeman can arrest you without warrant.
Mm-hmm.
Not have to show a warrant. You can. I doubt a majority of Nigerians, if in fact, realize that there must be a warrant before they can be arrested or or just about all these other things that they do at random. It reached a breaking point, I believe, when a video of a young man allegedly being attacked by some of their agents was released on social media. And Nigerians having coupled with the economic strife and uncertainties, and how the terrible state of governance in Nigeria and so on. So I think it was just a culmination of things, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
I love how you brought it back around. I love that. I love it. I love it. No, so this is one thing that's going on there. Do you they've claimed to have done some new things now with that unit. Basically it's a name change or whatever, but it's basically the same thing in essence. Where do you see this going? What do you think the future looks like when it comes to this type of oppression and brutality within Nigerian society by this unit right now? Where do you see that going? And where do you, I mean, I know what the hope is, but where do you see it going, and what do you look forward to happening with that?
I recently, prior to the op-ed that I wrote for the Washington Post, I was quite distressed about what was happening back in Nigeria. Being a young person myself and knowing how Nigeria is and tough, especially for people who do not come from any semblance of privilege. Life can be incredibly crushing, and even more so sort of like made worsened rather by the government and authorities and so on. So I have always felt this incredible need to lend my voice, add my voice, or whatnot to, because I do have this. I've been blessed to be able to, convey my feelings and emotions in ways that many can't really, and so that I think comes with a responsibility. And so I created this like 15 suggestions of like the because I felt like the initial conversations surrounding NSAS were just centered around police brutality, and yes, it made sense at that point. But I had hoped that moving forward that the conversation would broaden to include some of the other injustices that Nigerians are suffering. And so I created this manifesto of suggestions, where I basically outlined, in my telling, the ideological boundaries of the movement, what I hoped would be the ideological boundaries of the movement. And I talked about how there is a need for a top to bottom change within government and some of these, many of these security agencies, because it's this idea of brutality is not just about the police, the military in Nigeria, in fact, brutalize the police and brutalize civilians.
Wow.
So the police themselves are not safe from the military. They go around in wagons and picking people, throwing them in gutters, and slamming them to the floor, and it's brutal. And for a democratic republic, it's just unthinkable. I talked about how it is incumbent on young people to think of a bolder vision for the country that is sort of grounded on some progressive ideals, such as hard work, transparency, and so on. So that is my vision for the movement. I hope that it can grow to include to include bad governance, corruption, to include all these other isms that sort of put Nigerians apart. That these will be a wake-up call for Nigerians to realize, and for young Nigerians especially, to realize that power will not change hands if we do not, first of all, acknowledge the depths of the problems in Nigeria and seek to change them. And it starts from the mind. Once you're able to set your mind free of some of these terrible conditioning or things that we've been brought up in Nigeria to accept, then once we're able to achieve that, then I believe that we have the human resources, we have the capacity, we have the minds, we have the brains. We are Nigerians, for goodness sake. And I say that knowing fully well how incredibly exceptional Nigerians are, especially when they put their minds to something.
Yeah.
We are beyond compare, and so we have it in us to get to that point. But changing of doing cosmetic whatnot on the police force or the SARS unit, calling them, changing. I mean, they in fact changed the name in 2015, 2016. And then now in 2020, again, repeating the same playbook. It's like, we aren't fools. We cannot be fooled. So I think I hope that we can, if we can accomplish anything with this movement beyond the awareness, that the global awareness that it's been able to bring, but that the everyday Nigerian man and woman would be able to see, that we are able to show or to elucidate for them why it is vitally important for there to be a change.
Yeah.
And how their lives could be markedly different when every aspect of the Nigerian society works.
Definitely. Now, transitioning from that into, I'll tell a little story. I was watching this thing on YouTube the other day. It was showing just different places in Europe, right? They were just going all over Europe, from Italy to Spain to England to Portugal, and just like showing cities and stuff. And every time they would say something like, and they arrived with this from Egypt, yes, and this thing is here, and they arrived with it from South Africa, and this thing was here, and they arrived with it from India. And I'm like, girl, they didn't just arrive with it. Like, these things were taken, and especially people like us who are from countries with strong colonial histories, deep into the 20th century. These things are even more apparent to us, about, European places, European countries, stealing and pillaging and, having, things from, the colonial places. with artifacts within their museum, things that are like within the structures of the things they have, you know, their own monuments weren't even theirs before, and now it's like become a their thing, you know, stuff like that. And I know that you feel very strongly about this, especially about that change.org petition about Nigerian artifacts in the UK. Expound a little bit on that.
So studying fine arts in Nigeria. So you study fine arts from your primary school, which I imagine is the elementary school here in America.
Elementary here, yeah.
I took fine arts all through my senior secondary school, class 2 rather, which is penultimate class, you know, and we're taught about the terracotta heads from Kaduna, northern Nigeria, to the Benin bronzes in southern Nigeria, and so on. And, you know, it was a shame that we did not see these things with our eyes. We saw pictures of them from museums outside of Nigeria. And supposedly our ancestors created these things. Made these things with their hands from centuries ago, even before the white men invaded what is now called Nigeria.
Yeah.
So it's this. So I want you to understand that this is not just about the artifacts, but it's what it takes away from us. That young Brits can walk into the British Museum and see things that do not belong to them. They can almost touch it. Glasses around those artifacts. Them any day they wake up, any day they feel like going there, they'll waltz in there and feed their eyes of things that do not belong to them. And whereas those who, you know, own those things will never see those things with their bare eyes.
Yeah.
They'll only see on television and so on. So it's also that, there's also that.
It's deep. Yeah.
And how do you know that your people were great? How do you know that, you know, that how better, how I mean, I'm trying to articulate this thing where it's Nigerians have always been great, right? And so and this is the evidence of such, right? That before colonialism, before pale-skinned white people walked or actually invaded us, our ancestors were light years ahead.
Of course. And then
had the capacity to about art in such a way. They sophisticated. I remember reading because I mean, for the Benin bronzes, England had to send 1,200 British soldiers. 1,200 British soldiers to invade the Benin.
Wow.
They killed thousands, massacred, raided, and you know, when you look at the pictures, you see they loot thousands of those arts. This was in the 1800s, by the way, were gathered, and you know, the soldiers stood by with their whatnot and took pictures of their loot. And so it's and when the New York Times wrote about that in the 1800s, they talked about how, you know, when those arts were taken back to England, that in fact that the British I don't know, whatever the people who authenticate such items are considered or called, but then that they compared them to the great Greek sculptures and whatnot, that even those could not compare to
of course
the sophistication of those arts. So they recognized the value even in the 1800s, and that is something that they robbed us of.
Of course, and it's so important.
How many generations of Nigerians that cannot, that were robbed of that pride of knowing
yes.
that were in fact the shit from the beginning. That for the fact that they speak English now does not mean that their intellect or their profundity of thought or so on is because of white pants.
Yeah, nothing of the sort, nothing of the sort. And so I will say to our viewers that the link to that change.org petition will be in the description of this. Make sure that you go ahead and sign that. And then speaking of links and stuff, let me get into a little bit of social media. At the end, I'm going to ask you to share your social media with everyone, but let's talk a little bit about your Instagram project, Excel with Innanoshe, before we lead into that.
Right. So I just started this little thing with my friends. It's called Excel with Innanoshe. And I am blessed to have incredible friends who are, high achievers in their respective fields. And, we always have these very profound conversations between ourselves. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? I reckon people will find value in these conversations. And so I just started off the cuff. It is nothing out of the ordinary or groundbreaking. It's just me, playing around with my on my Instagram page.
I love it. And share your Instagram page. How can people follow you, learn more about you, and keep up with what Innanoshe is doing?
Right. So my Instagram handle is at Richard Akuson, which is RichardAkuson. And my Twitter page is account is at Innanoshe, which is spelled INNANOSHE. And yeah, you can always find me there.
Awesome. Listen, thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a amazing conversation. It was really, really great. You've been such an amazing guest, and I'm so glad that we did this, and hopefully we can get to do more again in the future. This was really, really great. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Having me, and I had a blast.
Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Bye, everyone.